Okay, welcome everybody to our next new athletic director webinar. We are again sponsored by the WPA network, who's helping us with a lot of computer details and scheduling details as we go. And so I'm glad that you could make it and join us today. I'm going to talk today about several topics, but again, just to go over some of the details of this, you're getting email reminders. You can do this with the computer and a phone or just the computer. You can be in listen-only mode, whatever. A couple of you already know this, but type in questions that you might have as we go, and Jim Piccolo will be watching those today and bringing them up as they come up in there. Remind the attendees you can mute yourselves, and so if you're sitting in an office where they might be noisy, just turn on the mute and we'll be in good shape with that. Also, if you need clock hours, get a hold of Dave Ticker. And I've got a new email address I forgot to change on this. It'll be on the next page here for him or so. We're doing, again, the webinars today, the October 12th one. And there's Dave's new email address right there, wasa1@gmail.com. So go ahead and get a hold of him at that address if you need him. You can get a hold of Pick or I through these emails as well. Except I can't push the right button here. Okay, what are we going to talk about today is going to be parent nights. And what I'd like to do with you tonight, and Pick's going to jump in as he feels he's got something there that he wants to add to what we're talking about. But I want to talk about, and I'm going to end this show for a second. Okay, so again, I'm going to talk about parent nights tonight, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this primarily as if I were making a presentation to your parents. Say it's winter season and you've got to have a parent night for your basketball, your wrestlers, your gymnasts, swimmers, that kind of thing. What kinds of things would you want to tell them? As I start, I'll also say if you need somebody to come and make a presentation at your school, Pick or I would be happy to do that. On the east side of the mountains, I'd have Joe Richer would be one that could come and do that. So if you are looking for somebody to come and make a parent night presentation, you can let us know and we'll be happy to help with that as well. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is do this kind of as if I'm actually doing it at your school so that you can see the kind of things that we'll talk about. What I would go through with them is I'm going to talk about attitudes, perceptions, role of parents, sportsmanship, communication, and then obviously we're going to come back to attitude because I think attitude is what makes the difference in everything that we're going to do here. I do have a book for anybody that's interested on how to deal with parents, and if you want to know anything about that, let me know. Bottom line is that attitudes are contagious, and the real question is, you know, do we as athletic directors, do our coaches have an attitude that's worth catching? And do they share that with kids, and does everybody know it? That's obviously what we're looking for in our coaches. You as parents, that's what you're looking for when you are in the midst of all of this. One of the things that I try to keep in mind and that I always talk to you as parents about is we all have issues. When we were coaching, we had issues. When I was a young coach, there was a certain amount of intimidation. Not sure what's going on here. Pick, you're still seeing my screen, right?
No.
You're not?
There you go. No.
Okay, then something's happening here. So let me go back to screen sharing. Now we're seeing your screen. You must have hit something here. So let me
my screen?
back to change presenters and come back to me. Okay, now we're back on my screen.
Okay.
Right?
There you go. Now you got it.
Okay. All right. So as a young coach, I loved coaching, but I was frankly somewhat intimidated by parents. And, you know, they were older than I was at the time. They were more experienced in a lot of things. A lot of them had better jobs and, you know, carried themselves well. And I was kind of intimidated by that. And an example of that was I was coaching the freshman football team one year. And as I'm coaching this team, we're out there getting ready for a game, and parents start coming up on the sidelines, and we're running through some plays pregame. And I look over the sidelines, and I say to my assistant coach, that guy over there on the sidelines, that looks like Vince Lombardi. And he looked at me and he said, that is Vince Lombardi. It's Vince Lombardi Jr. And Vince Lombardi was the general manager for the Seahawks at the time, and his son went to our school, and for whatever reason, I hadn't made this connection yet. And I thought, here I am out here coaching, and Vince Lombardi's son is on my team. I'm going, this is a disaster. How am I ever going to survive this? But the interesting part was Vince Lombardi was a great guy, never said a word. He was always thankful for everything we did with the kids, and it was just my own attitude that was the problem. Another example of that would be that sometimes we end up with too much involvement by parents. And so we had an example where my niece was playing basketball, and she was the point guard for our basketball team. And our coach would be sitting on the bench yelling to her, pass the ball, Moya, pass the ball. Now, my niece's dad, my brother-in-law, was sitting up in the stands. And at the same time, the coach is yelling, pass the ball, Moya. Yes, you guessed it. My brother-in-law is yelling, shoot the ball, Moya, shoot the ball. Here's a kid that has one authority telling her to shoot the ball, another authority telling her to pass the ball. What happens? She loses. She can't win that. No matter what she does, either the coach is sitting her on the bench because she's not listening, or dad's giving her a hard time at home when she comes home for dinner. Sometimes our parents can get too involved, and we don't know exactly how to deal with it as coaches. Other things that happen, lawsuits. One time we were coaching a team, and we got threatened with a lawsuit because we started one kid over another, and the parents were going to sue us because of height discrimination, that their daughter was shorter than the kid that was playing, and they thought that's the reason that we weren't playing her. So there's these things, these outside things that are happening with parents, with young coaches, and makes it very difficult for them sometimes to be successful at coaching. We had a coach one year who we had the big rivalry between our school and the crosstown rival. And we beat them in basketball on a last-second shot. It was the first time we'd beaten them in a couple of years. It was, you might think, a packed place. It was the most exciting thing you'd ever seen. And as the coach, he's done shaking hands, he's excited, he's walking across the floor. And as he walks across the floor, one of the parents meets him halfway across the floor and says, why wasn't my kid in the ball game in the last 30 seconds? Coach can't even enjoy the game. He can't even enjoy the victory because in that moment, a parent is so concerned about his kid rather than what's just happened here. So as coaches, those are the kinds of things we experience, and sometimes those are the kinds of things that make us a little reticent to deal with parents and to want to talk to parents. The result of that was, as an athletic director, when I was a first-year athletic director, I made a rule that said there won't be any conversations with parents about playing time, period. None. There isn't going to be any. What I found was that didn't work very well. It didn't work very well for a couple of reasons. Number one, parents figured out how to get around that, and sometimes the ways they got around it were much worse than the initial one. But secondly, I had my own kids, and when I had my own children, all of a sudden I was looking at this through a different lens. And I was looking and seeing the relationships that coaches sometimes had with kids and saying, maybe there really is something to this parent complaint about this coach not communicating properly and things like that. And so I had to change the way that I thought about it. The other thing that would happen is if they couldn't get the conversation the first time about playing time, then the next time they came in, after I told them we weren't going to talk about playing time, they'd say, oh, my kid's depressed. So we'd say, oh, well, come in, let's talk about that. Well, what's your kid depressed about? Well, my kid's depressed because he's not playing. Well, all right, get out of my office. We're not having that discussion. And then they'd come back with some more serious complaint and that serious complaint usually got other people involved, like the principal or the superintendent or the board or somebody, and I realized that wasn't going to work very well. So I changed how I was going to deal with this. I began to realize that there's a parental philosophy where every parent, and I'm a parent, and so I began to understand this and take my blinders off. I began to understand that every parent thinks their kid's special. Obviously, we think that as parents. We think that our kids can't afford to fail. And so we as parents often do everything we can to make sure that our kid is successful, even if it means fixing problems for them. And by fixing them, we're sometimes ruining it rather than helping it. Because as coaches, we believe failure is positive because it does tell us where we've made mistakes and what we need to do to be able to improve on it. By just fixing every problem for a kid, they never learn how to do it themselves, and that becomes a problem for them later down in life. The other thing that I've learned was that no is not an acceptable answer. And so if a parent talked to a coach and the coach didn't do what the parent wanted, then she'd go to the athletic director. And if that didn't work, then she'd go to the principal. If that didn't work, she'd go right up the line. And part of this is I found out I was doing the same thing. I'd call because I was having a problem with my cable or something. And I talked to the person on the line. If I didn't get the answer I wanted, I said, give me your supervisor. And I thought, ooh, this is something that we all do. So saying no, which happened with my generation, and we just said, okay, when a coach said no, that was the end of it. That's not the case anymore. So we need to learn how to deal with that. We also know that everybody gets a trophy for participating these days. Some of us think that's not such a healthy situation, but that's the reality of where we are and who we are. And so we have to be able to talk about that with parents instead of ignoring that reality. The other thing is that scholarships are the holy grail. Whether people will admit it or not, people believe that there are athletic scholarships out there and their kid is going to get one unless our coach gets in the way of that happening by not playing them properly. And so we need to have discussions about that. To give you an example about this, several years ago, Pennsylvania did a study, and they checked with over 10,000 high school students and parents, and what they came up with was 50% of 12th graders still believe that they're going to get a college scholarship. Unbelievable. 50% of 12th graders who are playing athletics still believe that they were going to get a high school scholarship. Now, those of us that are involved know that there are so few scholarships out there, like 2% maybe in most boys' sports. In girls' sports, it's going to be maybe a little bit higher. 3% of the kids who are playing will get one. Might in a sport like ice hockey or crew go up as high as 5 or 6%. But the bottom line is it ain't going to happen. And we need to talk to parents about those. And parents, you need to understand that ain't going to happen. We also have a situation today where we have helicopter parents, parents who are there at every practice, every game. Some people call them lawnmower parents because they're always mowing down the obstacles in the way. When I was a young coach, or when I was playing, let's go back even further. When I was playing, my parents never came to a practice. And, you know, they came to quite a few of the games, but not even all of the games. Today, there's parents that are there on the sidelines all the time. And for a young coach, the fascinating thing about that is before 5 minutes is up, something that you say on the field is going to be floating around in the netherworld of the internet because somebody's tweeted it, Snapchatted it, put it on Facebook or whatever. That's a tremendous pressure that's on coaches to be able to say and do the right thing all the time, which is, of course, as human beings, virtually impossible. But it's difficult because we have this helicopter parent thing. I believe that there's what I call a 10-80-10 rule. And I tell parents they need to understand this. I tell athletic directors they need to understand this. And what that is that about 10% of the people are going to agree with you no matter what you do or say. About 80% of the people are going to be supportive of you under most situations. and about 10% of the people think you're an idiot no matter what you say or do. And so when you look at different studies, like this one happens to be part of that Pennsylvania study, you'll notice, yep, there's that 10% that says, yeah, my parent or guardian is supportive of my coach. Never. There's about 10% in that category. When you look at, they yell at me for making mistakes, you know, it's pretty close. That about that 10% focus more on bad performances than good ones, falls into about that same category. And I think you'll see this is true with about any survey that you come up with. There's about 10% of the people you're just not going to make happy. As a coach, as an athletic director, my goal was to make everybody have a good experience and everybody to be happy. Once I learned this, I realized my life could be possible. I could possibly be successful. That there just flat out were some people that are just, whether it's they're unhappy or they're the experiences they've had, they're just negative. They see the cup as half empty rather than half full. I just need to know that. I need parents to help me with that 10%, and we'll talk some more about that as we go through this today. So I came up with a new paradigm, and rather than saying no to people, I realized, you know, how the realtor says location, location, location is the key. Well, for a coach and the parents, really it has to be communication, communication, communication. We can't communicate too much. And so today, rather than telling coaches they can't talk to parents or parents they can't talk to coaches, I say, no, we've got to encourage that, and we have to teach coaches how to communicate effectively. In these parent nights, we have to talk to parents about how to effectively communicate with the coaches. Because we do have lots of things in common with each other. Imagine the respect that goes along with the titles: mom, dad, coach. I mean, when you say those things, it means something very powerful. And both mom and dad and coach, you know, elicit that same response from people of, these are people that love me, that are looking out for my best interests. We have that in common. We ought to be able to build on that. Both coaches and parents are trying to act in the best interest of the student athlete. All of us want that. We have a different perspective on how to make that happen. As a parent, I know I wear blinders and my kid comes first and then the team comes second. With a coach, the team comes first and then the kids, you know, individually are part of that. But they're all acting in the best interest of students. We all believe that we can continue to learn and should continue to learn throughout our lives. And so both of us, parents and coaches, believe in being lifelong learners and continuing to learn life's lessons. We have those things in common. We need to build on that. We're all teaching life skills. As a parent, I'm teaching them skills about how to take care of themselves, how to drive, whatever it happens to be, how to get along with other people, how to, you know, eat properly at the table, use your utensils, whatever it might be. And as a coach, I'm trying to teach them life skills as well about how to get along with other people, how to do their share, how to be a good sport, whatever it happens to be. But we're all teaching life skills and how to get along. Love, we have that in common. Coaches are doing what they're doing because they love to be around kids and love to work with kids. Obviously, parents love their kids. We have all of this in common. We should find ways to be positive in our communication with each other. So we laugh every now and then when I talk about difficult subjects. We try to throw in something that's a little bit humorous in order to keep people's attention. But we've heard this as coaches for years about how coaches would prefer to work in an orphanage rather than sometimes having parents around. And really, it's all because of perceptions, because we're perceiving things differently. So what I would ask people to understand is that every one of us is different in the way we perceive the world. And if we understand that, then we're more likely to be able to be successful and talk about the areas where we disagree or perceive things differently. I like to use some examples, and I use some examples like this. Some things are just flat out black and white. So if you look in that black, count the number of F's. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to count the number of F's. Go. Okay, so how many, you can just kind of raise your hand where you're sitting right now. How many of you saw 3Fs? How many saw 4? How many saw 5? How many saw 6? It's fascinating to me that when we look at the same thing, some of us see 3, some of us see 4, some of us see 5, and some of us see 6. Obviously, as you look at this, there are 6 of them. It's black and white. It's either right or wrong. So sometimes we look at things and we see what we think we see, but we're not really seeing the reality of things. So a coach might be looking and saying, hey, this kid is the one that needs to be the starting offensive guard. And parents look and saying, no, that kid shouldn't be the starting offensive guard. It should be this other kid, my kid, And sometimes it's just flat out black and white. Other times it involves some judgment where somebody has to make a choice based on what they see. And I will use this one, which lots of people have seen, but I always think it's a fascinating one to do. So do you see an old lady or a young woman there? And I'll ask people, okay, well, let's take a look and see what you see there. So the old lady, that would be her chin. So she's kind of like the witch in a children's fairy tale, and this would be her chin. You see there is going to be her mouth. You're going to see her nose. She has a big round bulbous nose there. And that's one eye. That would be her left eye. And you'll see her in there, hopefully. Some people see it. When I look at this picture, I see the old lady first. Other people look and see the young woman. Let's see if we can find the young lady here. Well, the young lady, this would be her neck. And she has kind of an open neck there. She's got a chain of some kind or some kind of a collar on there. She's got the little small, you're looking at a profile of her and you're just seeing the little button nose with an eyelash above it there. So she's looking off to the side. And then this would be her ear, her left ear, and you see her jawline there. And so if you couldn't see the young woman, hopefully you can see her now. So some people look and see the old lady, some people look and see the young woman. What's interesting is when we show this to Native Alaskans, when we've done this with them, they look at this and what they see is an eagle. You see an eagle in there? To find the eagle, that would be the head of the eagle. All right, so it's like a bald eagle. It's all white here. You'll see a wing that kind of goes over the top, and we can only see an upper portion of that wing, and then the rest of the wing comes down here. Point being that sometimes everybody can look at this and everybody can be right, but you're not still seeing the total picture. You're only seeing the picture that you see. And so as a parent or as a coach, you have to be able to try to look at things and say, maybe there's another perspective on this, and I have to be open to the fact that I'm only seeing a part of this. And so it's really critical then that parents take a step back when they're thinking that maybe their kid's getting the raw end of a deal here. Take a step back, give the coach a little bit of room, and let's have a discussion and see what happens there. The next thing I like to say is that I don't know how many of you have been to Deception Pass that goes across by where Piccolo is living up there, and Stan went over to Whidbey Island, just north of there. And it's a very, very high bridge. So imagine, if you will, coming up to that bridge, and as you look at that bridge, I take away those guardrails. There are no guardrails on that bridge. They're gone. Would you walk out on that bridge? A lot of people tell me they won't even go out on that bridge if there's no guardrails. Other people tell me if I do, I'm going right down that yellow line. And if I say to you, hey, go over to the side, look over the side because there's an incredible view down there. Most people say, that ain't happening. Or maybe they'll crawl over there on all fours, take a quick peek, and then boom, they're right back to that yellow line. What happens, though, when we put that guardrail back up? The minute we put that guardrail back up, People walk across there, they walk over, they lean against it, they sit on it, they climb on it. Um, they're there. And I like to say, that's the same story as raising kids. Our kids need guardrails. When they have guardrails, they know what's expected of them, they know what's safe, and they know where their boundaries are. They may not always listen to those. They may not always pay attention to those boundaries, but at least they know where they are. And what we find is when you have boundaries, you actually have more freedom rather than less. We have too many parents today who are trying to be friends to their sons and daughters rather than being parents who are providing guardrails, which gives the kids more freedom than you have otherwise. Just a piece of advice for parents. And when you do that, now you can see all the beautiful views and really feel like you're part of the world, and you can experience the world because you have that freedom to do that. Next thing that I would like to say to parents is, what we have found in the coaching world is there are only 3 things that we need to do to keep you parents happy. If we do these things, we will never, ever have a problem with parents. Number 1. Number 2. And number 3. If we do those things as coaches, we'll never have a problem. Obviously, this can't happen. I've picked it up at a National Athletic Directors Conference one year. They said, hand out a 3x5 card to the parents on, say, your basketball team and ask them how many minutes of a game their kid ought to play. And you collect those back, and, you find out that the parents have said, that it's got to be this huge number of minutes. And in a basketball game where there's 8-minute quarters and 5 kids playing, so that's 40 minutes, times 5. It's like 200 minutes available, but people are saying, they add them up and it comes up to like 300 minutes. It isn't possible. Parents, it's not possible to play your kid all the time and win. It isn't going to happen. If that's the reason that your kid is out here playing the sport, they need to be finding something else to do. It isn't possible. So we've got to, as both parents and coaches, find other reasons for the kids to be out here and the kids to be participating in this, or we're going to be miserable, and we have to be able to talk about it. The other thing is every school has a mission statement, and put in here your own mission statement. I just happened to put in the Ballard High School one, but in a presentation like this, put in the school mission statement, and now you look at that mission statement and say to the parents, you see this mission statement? Where does it say that we're going to win the state championship? Where does it say that your kid's name's going to be in the paper? Where does it say your kid's going to get a college scholarship? That's not why high schools have athletics. High schools have athletics to teach kids life lessons, to make them better citizens, to build up their skills. It's not about winning things. And I say it constantly to coaches and to parents, and to athletic directors, put this statement in front of people every time you sit down with a parent. Put this out there and say, how are we working towards this? Not what you believe we ought to be doing, which is winning all the time or getting your kid a scholarship, whatever it may be. This is why high school sports exist. And it's a powerful thing for them to see. The next thing I'll talk about with them is the role of parents. And I'll talk about the fact that, before the season, you need to understand why your kid is playing. If your kid is playing because you want him to play, this is not going to be a successful experience. As an athletic director, I once had a girl come in and tell me that what she really wanted to do was to run cross country, but her dad was making her play soccer because dad wanted her to be successful in soccer. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to run cross country. So talk to your kids and find out why they're out there and what it is they're trying to accomplish. Parents, your role during a contest is to be a positive role model. And we'll come back and talk some more about that. And after a contest, it's critical that you give them time. Bruce Brown talks about the fact that one of his football players one year was the starting running back on his team and just had a great game one night. And when the game was over, everybody went home except this one kid, and he was in there helping Bruce pick up the locker room, picking up the pieces of tape and the clods of dirt that were on the locker room floor. And Bruce finally looked at him and said, "Why don't you go home?" And the kid said, "You know, Coach, my dad's outside in the car waiting for me. And when we go home, he's got a video of the game, and we're going to sit up tonight, and he's going to tell me what I did wrong." Kid didn't even want to go home because he was going to get that kind of grief from a parent when he get home. Folks, give them time after a game. You know, next day you want to talk to them, you know, more power to you. Go for it if you feel you must. But right after a game, leave them alone. Give them some time. Same thing with coaches. Give them some time to adjust based on that. Bruce Brown also talks about the fact that there's another sports triangle, and he says, you know, what's interesting is the parents want to coach. You know, so the parents are up in the stands thinking, I could do this, I could do this. And in fact, probably a lot of parents have coached. When I was playing, parents didn't coach. They, you know, sent us to somebody else who coached us, and they weren't out there doing it. But today, almost every parent coached something while their kid was growing up. You know, little league this, little league that, club soccer, whatever it happened to be. So parents quite often think, I've coached before, I know how to do this. And so they want to coach. You got the coaches who, instead of coaching, want to help the officials. And you have the officials that sometimes we say want to watch. You know, instead of calling stuff, they just kind of watch it and seeing what's going on. And Bruce says, you know, what's fascinating about this is you can really only do one thing well. Choose, and choose wisely. Kids don't have more parents than you. Be a parent to them. You're the only ones they got. If you want to coach, talk to your athletic director. They could probably find you a coaching position in the district someplace. Probably not coaching your kid, but they could find you a place to coach if that's really what your passion is. You want to officiate? Our officials are dying to get more people out there working those games. I would be happy to put you in touch with the assigner of any sport you wanted to do, but choose well. Every study that's been done says the reason that kids play is to have fun. Whether this is an old Michigan State study that was done, late 80s, early 90s. There's a USS swimming one that was done in the last few years, one in Pennsylvania, which I think I'll show you in here. But they all say the same thing. Kids play to have fun. Now, down the road a ways, yeah, they want the excitement of the competition. They want to improve skills. They want challenge. They want to, you know, win some stuff. But the reason they're playing is to have fun. So if you're a parent, let them have fun, because if it isn't fun, they're not going to do it. And I tell the coaches, if you aren't making it fun for them, if you aren't making practices fun, you're not making games fun, you're not going to have kids out there. Same is true with girls. It's the same. They're playing to have fun. They still have the excitement of competition and the challenge on there, but it's to have fun. The most recent study is this Pennsylvania one. And again, what the kids said is, we want to have a fun experience. That's why we're doing it. And you'll see what happens with other folks. You see the coaches and the parents, you know, that maybe isn't as important. But with the kids, that's number one. That's the reason they're doing it. Are they playing to have a winning record? Well, again, you'll see down here, is it on the top 10 list? Absolutely. But is it the most important thing? No, not for kids. Sometimes it is for us parents and for us coaches, but it really isn't for the kids. And it's important for us to remember that. What about the athlete's perspective on things? Take a look at this, and this is, hopefully it'll work on here. Okay, well, I'm going to roll back one. There it is. Okay, it's coming.
Come on, Dad. Find your stance, little. Don't crouch. And don't throw up. Visit.
Canadian hockey puts out a lot of those. If you're ever looking for one of those for a parent night or anything, they put out a bunch of those. But imagine from a kid's perspective, where we're going to go with that. The kids are seeing things differently. And now I'm frozen. I'm sorry here. So we have to keep in mind that the perspective, again, we talked about perspective, a coach's perspective, a parent's perspective, a kid's perspective, how things are going to be on that. And I apologize that it's frozen. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can get it out of that mode.
Well, Tommy's trying to find out. One of the things that worked well for me with parents, and I had them all different types that came across my desk as a coach and as an athletic director. The first thing I always did is I listened very carefully. Listen to what they had to say and be impatient to what they had to say, and I took notes to what they had to say. And the other thing is I always told them, I said, it's okay to disagree. And I understand you're emotionally going to be charged up with the situation. But it's okay to disagree. And then the other thing I always said is you come into our playhouse, come into our gym, come into our courts, and you tell us how to run things or how to do things. I said, what if I came to your workplace and told you how to make those widgets or how to run your store? They listened to that and said, well, it makes sense. I said, yeah, it makes sense. I understand we're in the educational business, but our bottom line is to educationally instruct your sons and your daughters the best we know how. And if you can do it better, I appreciate it. Come on board with the rest of us. If not, be the parent and watch and enjoy it, because the ride is very, very short and does not go very long, and we're all done. Didn't always work 100%, but it did work. And then the last piece before Tommy goes in there, he talked about communication. One of the things I had is we had some really, really good basketball teams for about 10 years, and one of the parents got really hot up in the stands because his boy was not playing enough. And so he came down the stands just charged, and I intercepted him, and I told him our rule. Our rule is that, no, you can't talk to the coach until, 24-hour rule. And he understood that, but he was still hot. So the next day he comes in, and he was still hot with the situation because his boy was not playing. Well, I got the coach in the room and the boy in the room. And we sat down, and the first thing that came out of the boy's mouth was, Dad, I'm okay. I understand my role as a player. Now, obviously that coach had communicated hard to the kid about what his role was and understood when he was going to come into the game. And it was also communicated to the parent. And after the parent heard that, he said, those other friends of mine up the stand were sort of egging me on to come down and got me all riled up. And he was done. He listened to the game, watched the game, never said another word for the rest of the season. And his son played in the role that he was expected to play. And it was successful for both sides. So sometimes it's a matter of having your athlete in there telling the parent too to, hey, I'm fine. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Good, thank you. Sorry about that. I think it's because I'm doing it on the internet instead of just off my computer here. But back to what we're talking about. One of the things that I came up with, and it was probably one of the better things I did in my years as an athletic director, is I decided that I would ask parents three questions. Ask the kids three questions, and then I would compile their answers, and I would share those with the parents. Because sometimes when we talk to parents, we as athletic directors talk to parents, they say, I've heard this before, I don't need to hear this again or whatever. But when I was able to come and say, this is what your kids told me to tell you, was a totally different atmosphere in there. So I asked kids three questions, and I would do this on let's say at a practice, right before they go out to practice. I give them a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with these three questions on, say, give me your answers, and they give me the answers, and boom, they're gone out to practice. And I did it with boys, girls, varsity, JV, freshmen, everybody. I asked them, what do your parents do at contests that embarrasses you? What do your parents do that you appreciate at contests? And then what would you like me to tell your parents if, I'm going to be speaking with them tonight? Well, let me show you what they came up with. And I suggest that you do this with your kids because it's powerful and you'll come up with the same kinds of answers I'm sure that we came up with. So in their own words, they would say things like, what embarrasses me? Well, my parent trying to teach me how to do something correctly or telling me what I was doing wrong after a game. How about coaching during the game, yelling down there and telling us what we should be doing during the game? That reliving every moment of the contest afterwards and going over and over and over it with the athlete afterwards. How about that one? Kids find that very embarrassing when their parent is kicked out of a game. How about going crazy at the refs? Up in the stands, there's a parent that's going nuts up there. And one of the reasons that the parents do this is they know that the coach can't yell too much or the coach will get tossed out. So they think, well, if the coach can't yell, then maybe I'm the one that needs to, step up and do this. No, we don't need that, folks. Your kids are embarrassed by that. Can you imagine an adult taunting a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid out on a field? Can you imagine that? And I'll say it just like that to parents, and there's kind of an uncomfortable feeling usually in the group because they know that it happens. They've seen it. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get the 10% plus my 80, so my 90%. I'm trying to get my 90% of the parents to help me control those 10% that are out of control. And I'm doing that by pointing out some of these things and saying, this isn't the behavior that we expect, and I need your help to do this. So I'll raise it like that. Yelling at us, yelling at the coaches when really it's between me and the coach. Let me work it out with the coach. Don't get involved in this. This one happens at every school, I'll bet, in the state. Some parent comes to the game after drinking, and I tell parents, folks, this embarrasses your child. Don't do it. And I'm saying it's the kids saying this. And like I say, it comes across a lot differently when the kids are saying it. Acting disappointed instead of reassuring me. How about getting a T against our team? We actually lost a basketball game one year because a parent got a technical foul in the last couple seconds of a game, and it cost us a game. That's pretty powerful. And then I always I always find some place where if you can put something humorous in after you've told them a tough thing like don't drink and don't get teased and stuff, everybody's feeling kind of tense. At that point, I throw in something like this and just say, hey, Billy Pooh, you look really cute in your uniform, honey, and give me a hug. Don't do that in front of other parents. It embarrasses me. And everybody laughs, and now they're ready to listen again. What do you parents do that you really appreciate? Kids really understand that their parents have busy schedules, and they appreciate it when they come and support them. This is the most important thing. No matter what else you parents do, make sure you do this one. And everybody laughs, and it's a good thing. Support the whole team, not just me. Cheer even when we're losing. Tell us we did a good job. Be proud of us even if we don't win. That's okay. Be quiet and less cheering with everyone else. And I talk about the examples of, kids don't want to hear their name called out when it's silent in a gym or at a pool or something like that. Or you see the parent that's walking up the side of the pool screaming, go, Julie, go. And of course, Julie's head is under the water, so she can't hear her anyway, That's not what they want. They want you to be involved with the other parents. Don't yell at a coach. This one fascinated me. Make friends with the other parents. The kids said they want their parents to make friends with the other parents. And I'm thinking of this as a parent going, wow, this is awesome. You're in the stands. You're meeting the parents of your kids' friends. You have the opportunity to get to know them, get to know what kind of family they are, whether it's safe to let your kids go over there on the weekend, whether you can feel comfortable to call them up and say, hey, my kid says he's over at your house tonight. Is that true? And they're going to help you to raise your kids that way. It's a great thing. Telling a negative parent to be quiet. One of the better things we did was we would bring Tootsie Roll Pops to games. And what we started with, I got a parent who was willing to do this, and we'd have Tootsie Roll Pops, and if a parent got up and said, hey, ref, you're terrible, I won't use any language here, this mom would stand up and hand him a Tootsie Roll Pop and say, "Put this in your mouth." Then the next time he was getting ready to stand up and do that, he'd say, "Oh, I better not do that because I'm going to be getting a Tootsie Roll Pop." It totally controlled, not totally, but it hugely controlled what was going on in the stands because people were conscious of the fact that they needed to be good sports because we had this symbol of giving them the Tootsie Roll Pop. And eventually we got to where we just gave them Tootsie Roll Pops before the game. And that reminded them, let's be good sports. It turned out to be a great thing. If you knew I was talking to your parents tonight, what would you like me to tell them? The kids said, don't get frustrated. Don't become too involved. Stay in the stands. Encourage. Let us work out the problems between the kids and the coaches. Give us that time after the contests. If I don't play, don't be angry at me or at the coach. You know, we had a situation one time where the last period of the day, the kid did something, didn't turn in an assignment, and the rule was if you didn't turn in an assignment, you didn't play. Well, the parent's mad at the coach because the kid's not in the game. Well, the kid's the one that made the decision at the end of the day, but the parent doesn't know this yet because they haven't had this conversation. Well, just be calm, parents, and give it some time, and we'll work through this thing. Tell your kid not to steal. I was fascinated at that. You know, you think about all the teams that we coach, that we played on, where we're always talking about we're a family. We take care of each other, and then stuff disappears. So we got to talk about that too. Relax and let the kids have fun. Don't make a scene. Remember, it's your kids' team, and it isn't life or death. Enjoy it. Pick set it. It goes so fast for parents. It'll be gone before you know it. So sit back and enjoy it. And so we have found that to be a very good thing to go over with parents. The other one, every chance I get, every opportunity to speak to parents, and whether it's in written form or in verbal form, I talk about good sportsmanship. I'll often do it by saying, you know, when I was a kid, now we're talking back in the 50s, long, long time ago, but when I was a kid, the big hero was Superman. And Superman could fly through the air and stop speeding trains and stop a bullet and save people's lives. And then I became an athletic director, and I thought, you know, there's probably some times when I might need that bulletproof vest when I'm out in the parking lot. And I thought, this is really kind of a strange situation. And so I would say to parents, and I say it just like this, I say, parents, if you can't be a good role model for any other reason, you can't be a good sport for any other reason, would you please do it so that everybody goes home alive tonight? And I'll say it just like that because I want them to get the point that sportsmanship is a critical thing here. After I've said that, I say something humorous to again get them to come back and listen. Good sportsmanship to not pick up lost golf balls while they're still rolling, you know, and everybody will laugh and, you know, now they're ready to listen again. So that's why I throw in something like that at that particular point. And then I'll talk about, you might remember this from a few years back, there was a little league football game and a kid got clipped on a kickoff, and that coach in the center there was the kid's father, the one who got clipped, and he ran out there and he knocked the kid down who clipped his son. And these are like 11-year-old football players. And it started a brawl. It was ugly. It was a mess. It was in Sacramento, California. The San Francisco Chronicle, guy C.W. Nevius wrote an article about it the next day, and he said, you know, what kind of man would do something like that? What kind of father would allow himself to lose control so completely? Can you imagine someone who would? And he said, I can. Me. I've never charged the field, punched a ref, or grabbed a player, but I've been close. I know that feeling. And so do you. His point was, feelings. We all have feelings. We all sometimes think our kids are getting the best short end of the deal. The ref's calling the game for the other team. Our kids are, you know, getting cheated against or whatever. We all feel that way, but we're adults. Our job is to push the emotion down and bring that rational, logical mind in there and say, yeah, but I've got to show people how you react when that kind of thing happens to us. And I've got to be the bigger man and the bigger woman in this particular situation and do the right thing. So we have to talk to our parents about sportsmanship. We have to give them examples of what's right and what's wrong and how they can express it. Good example of it, show respect. No one understand the rules. I don't know how many times, people don't understand that the rules change from year to year and they get in trouble because they're yelling about something that actually changed. Maintain self-control. And really, we should recognize and appreciate skill and performance regardless of what school they're from. This is high school sports. If the kid on the other team has an incredible day in whatever sport it happens to be, shouldn't we honor that? I mean, it's cool. I'm sorry they did it against our team and maybe it cost us the game, but that's pretty amazing what that kid did. We should probably be honoring all of those efforts. So, communication, why is it so difficult? Well, our job as parents, our job as coaches, our job as athletic directors is to say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. That's the critical thing here that we have to try to get across. Moral of the story, communicate, communicate, communicate. We can't do too much of it. I tell people that, and you have stories. You can use my story, but you have a story too. So I tell this story as the kind of the conclusion for parents, and I say, parents, when I was young and playing, my dad came to every game that I played in college. And after every game, he'd come up to me and he'd pat me on the back and say, "You played a great game, son." And I'd look at him and I'd think, the man knows nothing about sports. If he just thought I played a great game, there's something wrong with the way he's thinking because I was terrible today. But he did it every game. Some years after I got done playing, I said to him, "Tell me, why did you do that?" And he said, I figured, especially in those times when you played poorly, you needed a father, not another coach. I thought, wow, what a powerful thing. I hope I can do that with my kids. Then all of a sudden, my kids come along, and I'm an athletic director now, and my kids are playing at my school, and I'm watching this, and I'm seeing my son, who's a freshman in high school, and he's playing football, and he's playing defensive back, which is what I played, and he's about the third smallest kid in the team, and he's getting in like for the last 40 seconds of a game or something like that. And so I'm bringing him home at night, taking him out in my backyard, and I'm saying, all right, here's how you get in the stance, and here's how you backpedal, and here. And he says, in his own loving way, he says, Dad, I don't really want to hear this from you. And I thought about it, and I said, he's right. This is his experience, not mine. I need to let him go. And what we agreed to at that time was, I'll tell you what, I got some stuff I can offer you, but if you want to know about it, you ask me. If you ask me, I'll be happy to sit down with you and go over any of that stuff. But otherwise, I'm just going to let you have it be your experience. I got out of the
You have two.
Along came my daughter, who was the. Somebody turn off that. Pick, can you see who that is?
And I didn't know.
It's got audio. Sorry about this. Brian Johnson. Turn off Brian Johnson's speaker there.
Okay.
Well, anyway, just call me back.
Okay, thank you. So my daughter comes along, and my daughter is a 5-time state swimming champion. And she goes to Providence College to swim, and she's swimming. She's the captain of the swim team, and it's her senior year, and she's swimming, getting ready for the Big East Championship. And one day I get a call from her coach who says, Tom, we just found out that your daughter's got cancer. Her swimming career was over that second. It made no difference anymore about the swimming. Nothing made a difference except what was going on there. And what I needed to learn from that experience was that what I needed to be was a real human being. How many times do we tell our kids, sports are everything, man, you really got to go out and do this. You got to prepare. You got to work harder, and then what happens? A kid twists an ankle, breaks the knee, breaks the leg, has cartilage in the knee. I mean, it's all sorts of things. And then what happens to them? If we haven't taught them to be a complete person, to have friends, to make friends, to be a friend, to be a student. What have they got? So our job is to teach them to be a whole student. Along comes my granddaughter, and by the way, my daughter is fine. She's cured of it, and it's been 18 years or something. Everything's fine with that. But along comes my granddaughter, and she's got special needs, and we were never sure she was going to walk or talk or kick a ball. And I look at parents and I say, you know, parents, be thankful for the miracle of your kid. Your son or your daughter is out there, is on a team, can run, can play, can be part of this, whether they're sitting on the bench or whether they're the person that's in the contest more than anybody else. It's a miracle that their body works the way that it's supposed to work and that they're able to be out there. Just enjoy it. So I tell them, be a parent, not a coach. Let them go because it's their experience. Make sure you're teaching them that there's things more important than athletics, and be thankful for this opportunity to be able to share this experience with your kids. And then I finish with this. So if A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 3, all the way through the alphabet, attitude is everything. Change your attitude and you can change your life. And I'll say to parents, change the way that you look at things, change the way that you, the perspective that you think you have on things, change the way that you talk with your kids. Coaches, you obviously need to do the same thing. And if you do that, we will be able to really make a difference in terms of how our kids experience this athletic life that they have. And it's all about attitude. So that's what I'm going to do at a parent meeting with our parents. And at that point, I guess I would say, what questions might you have about any of that or about parents in general? But that's the kind of thing that I would do at a parents' night, like before basketball season, and go through those kinds of topics with them. What questions might you have, if any? Okay, Pick, you got anything you want to add?
No, great job, Tom. Well done. Very well orchestrated. Excellent.
Okay, our next webinar is going to be on November 9th, and what we're going to talk about, quite frankly, is, oops, right there, what's confused you so far and what problems you're facing. And Del Dittis is going to put together that presentation, and what we hope is that in that presentation on November the 9th, that you'll come with questions, suggestions, ideas about what you found frustrating so far, what kinds of things can we help you to be able to be more successful in this before you go into basketball season. With that, again, I appreciate you all being here. I hope you found something in here that was worthwhile for you. This obviously will be put up on the WASSA website within the next couple of days, so you can refer back to that if you saw something in here you want to use. You can email me directly if you decide that there's something in there that you thought that you wanted. I'll put up my address again. If there was something in there that you thought, oh, that's really cool, I'd like a copy of that, you can just send me an email for that. If you'd like Pick or I to come and speak with your parents, we'd be happy to do that as well, because we think it's such a crucial thing for success of your athletes and your coaches. So thanks for being with us, and good luck to you, and have a great day. Take care.